On June 24, 2022, the United States Supreme Court declared that abortion is no longer a constitutional right. This decision, made through the recent case of Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, reversed the precedent set in a 1973 Roe v. Wade. To understand what this really means and how we got here, let's start from the beginning. There have been several important cases regarding abortion laws in American history, as shown in this timeline of some key abortion rulings from the Supreme Court. But one of the first and most significant was Roe v. Wade in January of 1973. A young woman brought the Texas abortion laws to court, declaring their criminality against her right to personal privacy. This Texas law made abortion illegal with the exception of a doctor's order in extreme circumstances. After a year of deliberations, the Supreme Court declared that the Due Process Clause within the 14th Amendment is a fundamental right to privacy, which ultimately protects women's health and interests over the potentiality of human life. To understand the turmoil on the Roe v. Wade decision, it's important to understand what these two positions on abortion stand for. Pro-choice, also known as pro-reproductive care, because they support for the proper resources and medical care being available to all women. Those whose ideals most agree with pro-life advocate for the potentiality of human life and argue that one's right to life can begin even as early as conception. So how exactly did the 1973 Roe v. Wade decision polarize this issue? The Supreme Court's intentional discretion and their dependence on factual development. Disclaimers within the Roe decision imply that the consensus for when human life begins is not yet identified. The Supreme Court states that until more scientific knowledge is uncovered, the question of when life begins is in the hands of the woman, but only for now. We need not resolve the difficult question of when life begins. When those trained in the respective disciplines of medicine, philosophy, and theology are unable to arrive at any consensus, the judiciary at this point in the development of man's knowledge is not in a position to speculate as to the answer. This allows the country to essentially take their own stances on the morality of abortion, being that the Supreme Court decision was profoundly left open-ended and subject to change. Roe v. Wade created the framework to govern abortion regulations based on the trimesters of pregnancy. The Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade denied the state's power to completely ban abortion, and the power in the states to regulate abortion increased as the woman's pregnancy progresses. Roe v. Wade allowed state intervention post-viability, which in medical evaluations normally occurs around 23 to 24 weeks. Over 40 years after the Roe decision, Republican candidate Donald Trump reveals one of his primary presidential goals while debating runner-up Hillary Clinton. In this clip, Trump reveals his objective to appoint pro-life justices to the Supreme Court in order to successfully overturn the precedents set in Roe v. Wade.
Do you want to see the court overturn Roe v. Wade?
If we put another 2 or perhaps 3 justices on, that's really what's going to be, that will happen. And that'll happen automatically, in my opinion, because I am putting pro-life justices on the court. I will say this, it will go back to the states, and the states will then make a determination.
Trump successfully appointed these 3 Supreme Court justices throughout his term, all 3 justices with similar conservative opinions to Trump himself. This is seen as a vital point in the president's political agenda, as it essentially led to a red wave takeover of the Supreme Court. 2022 Dobbs v. Jackson was a case regarding a Mississippi law that was considered unconstitutional under Roe v. Wade, prohibiting abortion at 15 weeks. Mississippi took this case to the Supreme Court, arguing that this ban was indeed consistent with Roe v. Wade. The state eventually took the case even further, asking the court to outrule Roe v. Wade entirely. Why would Mississippi request such drastic measures? It was no secret that the conservative majority of the Supreme Court would be on their side. The Supreme Court overturns a 1973 Roe v. Wade eliminating the federal constitutional right to abortion. Roe's core precedent prohibited states from banning abortion before viability. States now have the ability to ban or regulate their own abortion laws without the possibility of federal government intervention. This map is a projected depiction of a post-Roe America. Over 26 states have projected to completely or partially ban abortion. Without Roe v. Wade's protection of pre-viability rights for women, there are no limits as to what reproductive restrictions can be placed on abortion. Without Roe, 36 million women across these 26 states will lose access to abortion care. Post-Roe America means worsened polarization, increased medical oppression on minorities, and it will drive the practices of abortion underground again. What can you do? Vote in your state and advocate for what's right to help protect the women in your community.